Hi, my name is Deepthi and I'm the founder of Big Blue Trunk. I'm going to show you today is the techniques and the tools that you need to be able to stencil, and you can use the same thing on any kind of surface. So whether it's a bathroom floor or a feature wall in your living room or a little piece of furniture, this is the same technique that you would use for stenciling. Here are the tools that you need. You need chalk paint. Along with the paint, you need a stencil, so you can choose a pattern that you like. A stencil brush, so you notice a stencil brush is flat on the top, or a roller. If you're doing a large surface like a wall, you can use a sponge roller, and these come in different sizes depending on the area that you want to cover. Masking tape to be able to tape your stencil onto the surface and make sure it doesn't move while you're stenciling. Right, so today what we have here is a little wooden board that's painted in white chalk paint, and I'm going to show you how to stencil on this board. The color we're using is Annie Sloan chalk paint in Napoleonic blue, so it's a nice deep blue. You don't need too much chalk paint, you just need a little bit for this kind of surface area. I have two types of stencils here. One is this one, it's a Moroccan stencil, and this one here is a border stencil. So I'll show you how to stencil with both. If this was a wall that you were stenciling, you would not start stenciling at the corner, because what will happen is that eventually you will cut off half your pattern at one end. So you always start in the center of the space and then move to the edges. Okay, so let's start at the center. That's the center. Now I'm going to take my paint and I'm going to use a stencil brush. Because this surface area is not very large, I'm not using a roller, I'm using my stencil brush. I also need a paper towel to dab off extra paint. So there are two tricks with stenciling. Number one, keep your paint nice and thick. So no water, make sure it's nice and thick. And number two, dab off all the extra paint onto a paper towel. So I've taken some paint in my brush, you can see that. And now I'm just dabbing off all the excess so that I have very little paint on my brush. Now the way that you would stencil, you don't stencil like you paint. You stencil either jabbing like that or in circular motions like that. So when you do circular motions, you get a more smooth finish, and when you jab, you get a more textured finish. So depending on what you want, you can choose either ways. So let me just finish this entire area and then take off the stencil and show you. Now if you wanted, with stenciling you can do a very solid finish or you can do a very powdery finish. So you can see that on one side I've done a nice solid finish, and on this other side I'm giving it a very powdery kind of a finish. So again, you can play around with it as you like. The good thing with chalk paint is that it's very versatile. It can go onto any surface and it requires very little time, so you can be very quick with it and get beautiful results. Leave this for a bit and let me show you the border stencil as well, so you get an idea of how to use a border stencil. Again, I'm going to use my masking tape. And let's maybe put the border up here, just on the edge. Okay, it's the same technique. We take some paint in the brush, dab off the excess. And I'm using circular motions on this one to fill it up quite quickly and get a smooth finish. I'll show you how to lift off the stencil. So once you're done with one part, you will basically pull off the tape and lift off the stencil from one side. And there you go. So you see on this part we have it quite solid, and here we have a nice powdery effect. Now if you were to continue, what you would do is give it a couple of minutes to dry, and then you would overlap the pattern. So you can overlap the pattern like that. which allows you to get the perfect placement if you overlap the pattern, and then continue until you hit the edge. Okay, so that is how you would stencil the next bit, and you would do the same thing on this side. Let's look at how the border stencil is looking. There you go. This can be done on glass as well. So that's how you stencil. You would leave it to dry for a few minutes, and then chalk paint is always sealed with wax to give it protection and prevent damage, scratches and dirt from catching onto the chalk paint. So if you're painting furniture, you would use the Annie Sloan chalk paint wax to seal the paint with the wax brush, and you would literally just massage the wax into the paint and then clean it off and you're done. We enjoy getting more people to do creative things with their homes, embark on craft projects, and generally incorporate color into their lives. So at Big Blue Trunk, you will find a whole range of tools that will support your DIY journey, including Annie Sloan chalk paint. We also run workshops where we teach how to use the paint in different ways for upcycling, and we provide interior styling and furniture refurbishment services as well.